Okay, all good. All right, everybody, thank you. Welcome back after our 10-minute leg stretch. As mentioned prior to our brief adjournment, the next item for us to discuss, as raised by the Mayor, is OPEX. And should I ask Johannes to join us at the table possibly, or should I hand over to our CE first?
Johannes could join me while I introduce. So, during the break, I had the opportunity to talk to the team, and following on Grace's feedback, there are two areas that the team have identified that could be potential opportunities. So, one of the areas within the Better Off funding was allocated to the combined district plan. And that was for special multi-purpose zones within the combined district plan, so a specific targeted funding. Now, we could reallocate that funding. It would need to go in line with DIA advice towards waters projects, but we could look to reallocate that. It's $250,000 that we could reallocate towards waters. And if we reallocated that towards waters OPEX, that would have more of an impact on rates. The second piece that I'll ask Johannes to talk to is just around roading. So in the consultation document, we had two aspects of two options with roading, and there is we had considered a further option, which was a higher risk option that had, again, potential to reduce burden on rate, but it does contain some risks. And what I'd like Johannes to do is just talk through those risks and those options now. So, okay.
Can I just, sorry, pause, right. Grace, are you there? Sorry, I just think it's very important. Yep, she's there.
Sorry, I am. I'm just feeding a baby.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure that you were here and that you were you could hear what was going on around the table.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Chair. When we were working through the long term, or developing the long term plan and the various asset management plans, one of the high risk options that were discussed at some point was cutting back on the recommended budgets for the operational maintenance of our roading program. Now, we can still do that, and it's the reason why it's possible to do that in roading more than in water is because it's a unit rate contract. So we could choose. We've got the budget. We can choose to do less of certain activities if we reduce the budget. Now, that does not come with risk, because the type of activities that would touch is activities such as pavement maintenance, meaning potholes, dig-outs, edge breaks. It is drainage maintenance, the clearing and cleaning of culverts and water channels. Our recommendation would be that we shouldn't do that, because there's a lot of risk. The risk associated with it is that we're compromising our assets. We would see a continuous exponential degradation of our roading network. We think back of the asset management plan, and one of our problem statements is that due to our current level of investment, we're seeing a 30% increase in maintenance required, not cost, just volume of maintenance. So if we do cut the operational budgets, that trend will continue. We're going to try and slow it down with smart investment or smart prioritization of our renewals program, but it's not guaranteed that we're going to get it right, and therefore it comes with a lot of risk. But if it's the appetite of the committee to give instruction or the CE to make a cut, I reckon that's probably a option, high risk option, but a option.
impact of that on operational costs would be?
The impact is that we would do less of the activities that I've described, meaning that we would see significant failure in certain activities sooner than we would anticipate, meaning that next time that we do an LTP, we would have to increase our level of renewals. The other thing that we will have to do is we would, in our asset management plan, make an adjustment of how we plan to catch up. Because I've discussed this matter with NZTA, and they understand that sometimes you have to make these discussions, but you have to plan to catch up. And what that means is that in the next LTP, we need to be willing to then catch up. But similar to the sludge, at some point you have to catch up. You can't just let it go, because that then compromises our 51% shareholder in our roads. So,
What sort of dollar are we talking about? So it depends on how much risk we are prepared to take, but it could be anywhere from no impact on rate to somewhere between 3 and 4% impact on rate in year one, depending.
Bringing it down.
Not year 2, not year 3, just year 1.
So with NZTA, we have some flexibility. So we can in NZTA 3-year bucket, we can move within that bucket as we please. So we can reduce year 1 and increase year 2 if we please. But I would imagine that come annual plan, the discussion will be to do the same as year 1. So it would probably be a flat cut. I've got good information that we are about to receive 96% of what we've asked for, which is much better than most councils will be getting, meaning that we will be basically giving money back to NZTA. So they're gonna.
Can you say that again?
So what I'm saying is that we've asked for a maintenance program to be funded by NZTA. They has unofficially indicated that we will be 96% funded, where other councils, like close by councils, will only be at 90%, and it's not uncommon for larger councils to be sitting around 80, 70 and 80%. So we are anticipating a 96% funding of our program, which is fantastic, but that only comes with council share. So if we don't have council share, if we only choose to fund 60%, well, we're technically giving back that 36%.
What would be the exponential in the new LTP 27?
Based on the current trend, I would say if you compare the increase that we've proposed from the current maintenance program to now, it would probably be double that, because it's an exponential increase. Our ability to recover will become harder and harder as long as we defer catching up.
So if we're talking 4% in year 1 or 3 to 4, are you talking about cutting that 3 to 4 to run over the 3 years, or 3 to 4 each year, and then in the 4th year it'll be 12% we're going to put back?
The latter.
But it will not. It's not necessarily if you take away 12 now that you're going to put back 12. You're going to gain 12 now, and we'll put back 25.
Yeah, because you have to do then 12.
Yeah. The advantages, yeah. And I guess what's got everybody concerned is that if we look at the reader of our document, there's the materiality question. What's concerning them right now is high inflation, high costs, projected unemployment, very difficult economic times, you could argue that it's justifiable for us to be taking risks in order to minimise the impact on ratepayers' personal circumstances. But you've got to accept that down the line, you've got to make it back. You could argue that by then, if we're coming out of a recession and things are better, everyone's going to be in a better place to do it. That's
Or we
about
might
crystal
not
ball
be, or we might not be coming out of
Yeah.
recession and
polish your
actually.
crystal ball.
So
Just one more comment through
Yeah.
the chair. The other thing to keep in the back of your mind as well is that if everything goes as we think it will and water moves out of our core business,
Yes.
our roading services will cost our ratepayers more than it's currently costing them.
Mm.
So the service that we're delivering today is going to be more expensive, say in 12 months' time or 24 months' time. And then we're proposing to catch up on top of that. So it's going to be a double whammy. And on top of that, there's the exponential degradation. And we haven't even considered the next significant event.
Not selling it.
I'm putting everything on the table.
And Johannes, can I just say thank you very much for.
Was that helpful?
Excuse me. Thank you very much for being so open and honest and putting everything on the table, because we're in a really difficult position right now with looking at rates, affordability, as a lot of other councils around the country. And whilst this is an option, it's a double-edged sword, and what decisions we make as this council will also have serious implications for future councils and future ratepayers and so on. I just had, going back to the DP $250,000
Yes.
funding. So, and that's OPEX money. So there's a 1% straight away, which I really like the sound of, because there doesn't appear to be any detrimental impact on that. You could
To the risk on,
Can you talk to the risk on it, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so the $250,000 split is also for when we identified the Eastern Growth Area, which was pre the district plan. So we've done that area as a future urban zone as a holder in the district plan. And also because we're changing our residential lot sizes, I think it's going to be years and years and years before we need to use that money to develop a structure plan out towards that Eastern Growth Area. So I'm looking at that and going, we got that zone in there. We haven't got a whole lot of submissions on it, so we're not at a risk of potentially fighting that zoning through an environment court process. So I'm very comfortable to say, I think given the rate increases we've got right now, it will be very prudent for the council to make that decision to use some of this better off funding money and reallocate it towards OPEX for the benefit of the ratepayers. The other part of it was the multi-purpose zone and sites of significance. The work that we've done on the sites of significance, we were anticipating that there'd be a lot more sites potentially identified in the Carterton district, that we would then engage somebody to go and fully polygon those areas. We've done the review and we haven't identified any additional sites for inclusion in the district plan. So we have done some work on the multi-purpose zone and sites of significance, but at this stage it's able to have been absorbed within the existing district plan budget. And with this rate increase, I just think it's very sensible. If there's something that my department can offer to help offset the rates, I think that would be silly not to put that on the table and put it up to the elected members.
Thank you, Solitaire. That's great. Can I open
a salesman on Johannes.
So we're just going to open for questions. Grace, you have your hand up. You have a question?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I want to echo the chair's comments there and thank both Solitaire and Johannes for coming to us with those two areas. I think that's really encouraging to see. As I said, we're desperately looking for things, but I think that it is extremely troubling that the best suggestion that we can put forward to cut costs results in risky cuts to our core business. So while I really admire Johannes's suggestion, which he, as you said, Jeff didn't sell it great, but the suggestion around cuts with the roading, it's encouraging that there is room to make cuts there. However, I would question if that is the best way we should be making cuts in our budget. And I would once again draw the councillor's attention back to the figures presented around 60 core staff and 24 not core staff. And noting that staffing numbers is based on the business programs, I would suggest that the fact that they're not core staff would mean that the work is not viewed as core work by the CEO. And I just wonder if we should be looking in those areas rather than in our roading and water infrastructure to make cuts.
Thank you, Grace. So are there any actual questions around the OPEX discussion and what the team have brought to us? And thank you very much. In 10 minutes, that was awesome. Councillor Cretney, question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We haven't done a customer survey, if I can put it that way, and I'm sure other members have fielded calls about certain parts of our roads and certain things that aren't being done. It would concern me if we're looking at making that even worse. So I'm not sure. While I appreciate Johannes's coming to the table with that, I'm just not sure I would be comfortable throwing that on top of things which we're already struggling to get on top of. I just think we'd be on a hiding to nothing going forward. So,
Councillor Williams?
Yeah, and just following on from.
So I guess we've got no questions and we've actually just moved into.
sorry,
Okay.
I did kind of have a question, but
Okay, so let's just combine questions and discussion then.
Well, following on from Councillor Ayling and Councillor Cretney, I guess it just highlights, regardless of how strong the appetite is, we had an option there around levels of service, and we understand the risk of stepping back from the levels of service that we've got. There's no easy fix, this is, and I guess it comes down, we can either protect the ratepayer's wallet or we can protect their amenities and facilities and assets, but we really struggle at the moment to do both.
Although we do have one option.
Correct,
that
absolutely, absolutely.
That has been bought, which is going to give us like that a 1%.
But any reduction in levels of service to our critical assets like road and water make me really, is I'd struggle to step back from where we are now, because we already acknowledged that it's even where it is isn't high enough.
Yeah, and Councillor Dalla.
I just want to reiterate that the comments that have been said. We don't mess with roads. We'll never catch up. We'll never catch up if we start dropping the levels of service. The suggestion is that like it's 12% in year 3 or whatever. That doubles at least, and we won't be able to afford it then, so it'll be cut. So yeah, and the DP money that's sitting there from the DP district plan, yeah, we should be redirecting that. So I'm all in favour of what we're doing there. Thank you.
CA.
Conscious I'm far enough away from staff that and you're between me, so if they throw anything at me, you're likely to get hit.
That's all right. I'm a good catch.
I am also, having recently reread our standing orders, conscious that we're unable to reverse a decision that you've previously made, but I am conscious that on our first day of deliberations, we made a decision around a one part of better off funding, which was towards cycle trails. And I'm just conscious that that could have an impact on year one. However, we've allocated it towards the trails projects and design on the trails. And I'm wondering whether or not a portion of that might also be able to help, perhaps not all of it, but a portion of it. But I am also really conscious that council's made a decision and voted on that. And as part of our standing orders, I don't believe we're allowed to go back and unwind a decision you've made at the meeting.
So my question to you then, that could be something that the full council, when the recommendations come up to full council, that a subsequent recommendation could be made by full council in regards to specifically that cycle trails. I know this money that has been put aside from the Better Off funding for the Māori zone and significant sites from the DP, is that an option? So excluding this new one, the decision that we made on Thursday, is that something that could be?
Did you take?
So I
Sorry.
was asking the CE.
So the CE's frown reflects the fact that I thought the council's opportunity was to accept or reject the recommendations, not pick and choose.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah. So Councillor Newman.
Sorry.
The Councillor Newman had a question, I think, and then it was a tie between you two.
I just have a question about that cycle thing. What would the effect be on rates if we did that in year one?
If it was,
if we moved it all?
you moved it all, about 2%.
Okay.
But we're only talking about. Oh no, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, just sorry.
Better Off funding.
Yeah, Better Off. Yeah.
So, and I've got another question. I'll admit it. Roads and how they're rated. When we're past the point of having that conversation, I'm assuming as in at the moment, the rural ratepayers pay at 90 cents for every dollar the residential ratepayers pay it at 80 cents, and yet they have, I don't know what percentage of the cost of roading is actually rural rates. Talking about targeted rates, things like that, we've passed that point. When can that come back up? Is that not until the next triennium or?
So the rural differential will be picked up at the next rating review. So that will be at least 3 years away, maybe six years away. We can do it earlier, but it won't be picked up. It won't be picked up in the next annual plan. It's a regimented process, either every 3 years or every 6 years. And in this case, it's scheduled for 6.
Okay, that is, yeah, it makes that decision really hard because I would rather ratepayers are leaving our town because they can't afford the rates than because they can't drive down their road because of potholes. But it also, I find it really hard to get my head around the fact that these residential ratepayers are footing the bill for all of these rural roads. It just doesn't sit right with me, but I hear you, that's done and it's done, but it just annoys me.
Just want to see on that point that is just made. We are still in that state of limbo around the rates review with respect to forestry, because we are considering the impacts of the roads. What's the timeline for that, our opportunity to address that, and would that pick up?
We would need to do the work around forestry and bring that through a rating review. Yeah. So we considered at the last rating review whether or not we wanted to create a separate class of land for forestry, and we decided against that. So that was moved out, and we continued on with a rating review that had no forestry class in it. If we wanted to bring that back in, we would need to go through the rating review process again for all zones.
And the reason we chose not to go and do all the work is because our neighbouring councils are actually doing that work at the moment, and allegedly doing that work at the moment, and we thought it would be more prudent of ratepayer dollars to see what they come up with. Yeah. That was my recollection of the discussions we had around the table.
You're right, Madam Chair, but I do think we were still considering, if they progress through, I get the impression of this thing, but we still have the opportunity to address that, do we not, given the Wairoa decision on our own bat?
We could do it on our own. We don't have to wait for our neighbours. And we would have to do it through a rating review, but we
No.
don't have to wait for our.
But I'm just looking for councillor Newman's sort of lever that she's looking for. And my question is essentially, is there a lever there to bring it forward?
Not for this LTP.
Not for this LTP, but
Going forward.
as a rating review.
Mhm.
Yes.
In 3 years' time.
If you bring it forward in 3 years' time, if you do nothing, it's in 6 years' time.
Something to look forward to next triennium, councillor.
Bring it on.
Are there any other questions around councillor Creighton? That was a funny face.
I don't really,
You didn't see the face.
really want to answer.
I don't know what to say, but.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, you mentioned this before about the recommendations. What if the extraordinary council didn't receive those recommendations?
So the process from there would be, council would then have to hold hearings and deliberations over again as council.
Supplementary to that, could the council recommend that the hearings committee reconsider a component?
Yes, it may.
And it could adjourn.
It could
And
send
the
the,
hearings committee could convene and reconsider its decision it's made.
Yeah,
That one.
that one decision.
yes, it could.
And bearing in mind that the full hearings committee is the full council as well, that could work with the least amount of disruption.
Will involve some mental gymnastics, but who's
Heck
hearing
not.
which meeting.
Yeah,
But you are
That's-
correct.
yeah.
The council is able to reject the recommendations and send it back to the hearings committee.
And they can reject a specific recommendation.
Well,
Well, we just
no, I think
ask you to.
it's all recommendations together as one
Okay,
bundle.
right,
You either
right.
accept or
Yep.
decline all
Awesome.
recommendations. You could decline them, send them back. You can add an instruction,
Okay,
ask them to specifically reconsider one item.
thank you.
I'm just, I know it is a little bit late in the day. I know it's procedural. It's,
But we
we
can,
need to look at
we
all
can do the
options.
gymnastics. Awesome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, you're welcome.
So-
Do we, so now if there is there any more discussion around this? Thank you. Right.
Thank you. Look, I just want to acknowledge, take that opportunity in the discussion point to acknowledge that advice that's come through, particularly Solitaire. And that is helpful, given the level of concern. I agree. If I was to stick to my views that I campaigned on a long time ago, that we should stick to core businesses, stick to knitting, I'd have to support Councillor Della and others who have talked about sticking with the infrastructure stuff. And as much as it might be tempting to take Johannes's sort of offer,
It's tabling options.
sort of offer, which he sold pathetically. We could,
That was a little hard.
we could, I would go with that view as well. I'd support that view. But I was looking for that other lever, because right now it's about delivering services to the level and for infrastructure that we know we need to do. But I am talking core infrastructure. I would simply flag, it's been useful having this OPEX conversation. It's been useful getting the supplementary advice. I still think we have got a question around staffing numbers, and because of the impact that it has and the 40% that it contributes. And I think there's going to be a conversation with CE around future. How do we look? We're jumping from a budget of about 25 mil to 30 mil, or 26 mil to 30 mil. That's a huge jump for ratepayers. And I think whatever we can do in this space to push that down will be hugely helpful for a lot of people. And it's not just about protecting their wallets. It's about the very real numbers that are turning up at food banks, the very real numbers that food banks are struggling with, and other people who are likely to lose their jobs and still keep their homes. Those are the things that concern me. Yep. So this is really, really helpful. Thank you for that.
And I'd also be interested, we've had discussions, it's not just about cost cutting, but are there any levers for revenue generation? And I think when you are looking at a budget, which the LTP is, it would be very remiss if you only focused on the expenses and didn't, if there were any extra levers in the revenue side of things. So thank you for your comments around that as well, and just re-highlighting that for those who probably may have let that slip from their attention. It's been the discussion has been very helpful, like everything we've had tabled today.
Is there a motion?
Yes. So I was going to ask, is there a motion regarding the reallocation of the Better Off funding that has previously been allocated towards the district plan
And Eastern Growth.
and Eastern Growth area it is $250,000 for that to be reallocated to Water's OPEX? His Worship the Mayor, are those words okay?
No.
Did you get my words, Robin? Because I can't remember. Yep. I would like to second that. I think that's so we will go to a vote. If everyone could raise their hand. Grace, I know we can't see you, but if you can use your hand emoji, please. Although I think we're meant to have visual can you put your camera on for the vote, please? Because as part of our, thank you. Awesome. So putting the motion to the vote, all those in favour by show of hands? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you so much, Solly. Really appreciate that. Awesome. Are there any other motions that anyone would like to table? And can we conclude our discussions, the fulsome discussions we've had around OPEX? Okay, so there being no other recommendations or motions. Before we move to... hand up? Oh, no, I think Grace put a hand up to vote and put it down again. Awesome, thank you. Is there anything else as part of our deliberations that anybody around the table would like to raise, have any motions that they would like to put forward now? And if there isn't, then I move that we go to the recommendations, of which are on page 5 of our hearings committee agenda. And we will be looking at 5, 6 and 7. And I've just kind of rejigged the wording, which I will check with the CE if it is appropriate. There's nothing like, it's just clarifying. So is there anything else that anybody would like to discuss, or any motions that they would like to put forward as part of the deliberations?
Just discuss. Is it wise to move to these recommendations ahead of getting those that extra information that we've already asked for?
I've got that in my reworded, which I'm getting checked.
Okay.
If you can read my scribble.
So we're still sticking with 5? Is that what you said?
I think so. Agrees any on feedback received and supporting information. So I thought that covered it there.
Yeah.
And then option 6. Actually, no, that's where I'd put.
That's right.
That's right.
Direct the chief executive. So if you're okay, I can read them out. So number 5 would remain. Number 6 would be instruct the chief executive to reflect the agreed changes in an updated report for consideration at the reconvened extraordinary council meeting and to be held on the 29th of May. And that would give council time to receive external legal advice. So we might reconvene the extraordinary meeting until such time as you've had the external advice. And then 7 notes that the draft long-term plan will be considered by Audit New Zealand ahead of the council meeting. June. The 7 stays the same. It's just 6 we're updating to reflect the changes in that we've made today, and putting a date for the council meeting till next week.
Is that okay? That was after I'd had my first coffee this morning. I was quite proud of that.
Makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense that I've had coffee.
I would expect to also have updated the number, bring a new number to the table with the recommendations from today's and previous meeting, and also bring external advice and table that for council.
As part of the update.
So the whole thing can be considered.
Are you comfortable with that? So I will move to recommendations. So we'll take them separately. Recommendation 5 agrees any changes to the draft long-term plan following consideration of the submissions and all other feedback received on the consultation document and supporting information. Do I have someone to move that recommendation, please? Thank you to Councillor Della. Do I have somebody to second that? Thank you, Councillor Williams. All those in favour by show of hands? Okay, all in favour, unanimously carried. Thank you very much. So recommendation number 6, so this is the updated one, instructs the Chief Executive to reflect the agreed changes in an updated report for consideration at the reconvened extraordinary council meeting to be held on Wednesday, the 29th of May. Do I have somebody to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Williams, and someone to second that. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. All those in favour by show of hands, please. Carried unanimously, thank you. And then recommendation 7 notes the redrafted long-term plan will be considered by Audit New Zealand ahead of the council's meeting on the 26th of June 2024. Do I have someone to move that, please? Thank you, Mayor Ron, and seconded Councillor Della. All those in favour? Show of hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a long 3 days, but it's been really, really worthwhile having these discussions.
Just
Dale.
as we close, I just want to acknowledge Madam Chair and her deputy. Thank you so much for your stewardship and leadership over these this period. These sort of conversations are never easy, and I would extend that to the whole team. Thank you for your contribution, councillors and staff. Continuing to move forward is absolutely essential, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Thank you, everyone.
Go and rerun the numbers. I've been keeping a running tally if you've closed your meeting.
I haven't closed it because we haven't done the closing karakia. So would you like me to close it and then we can? So closing karakia, kia tau, kia tātou katoa, ki atawhai o tō tātou ariki, a ihu kara iti. Tu aroha e te atua, me te whiwhinā tahitanga, ki te wairoa tapu, aki, aki. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
The meeting is closed.